Welcome back to Crime Time Inc. and today's Fraudcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the world of psychics and mediums today.
Right.
And whether their abilities are really what they claim to be.
Oh, it's a world
Yeah.
shrouded in mystery, that's for sure. And one that has captivated people for centuries.
I find it so interesting how they seem to know so much.
Yeah.
About people they've never even met.
Yeah.
It's like they have some kind of secret access to our lives.
Well, that's where the concept of cold reading comes in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a technique used by many of these psychics and mediums
Okay.
to create the illusion of deep knowledge.
So if they don't actually know anything about me,
Right.
how do they pull it off?
Well, think of it as a carefully constructed performance.
Okay.
The reader, as we call them,
Mm-hmm.
uses vague statements and leading questions,
Yeah.
allowing the person getting the reading,
Right.
the sitter, to fill in the blanks
Okay.
with their own interpretations.
So they're playing on our tendency to find meaning, even where it doesn't exist.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We as humans are naturally inclined to seek patterns and make connections.
Yeah.
Cold readers exploit this
Okay.
by offering generalized statements that could apply to almost anyone. So they're called Barnum statements.
Oh, with those horoscopes that always seem to have something vaguely applies to your life.
Exactly. Think of phrases like, you're a caring person, but you also value your independence.
Yeah.
Or you've been feeling a bit lost lately, searching for your true purpose.
Right.
These statements are intentionally broad.
Yeah.
Yet we often find ourselves latching on to them,
Okay.
finding personal significance where there is none.
It's like they're setting a trap,
Right.
and our own brains are walking right into it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And Derren Brown, the mentalist and illusionist, has actually demonstrated this phenomenon quite effectively.
Oh, right.
He conducted an experiment
Okay.
where he gave a group of students identical generic personality readings.
And what happened? Did they see through the ruse?
Not at all.
Really?
In fact, they all rated the readings as highly accurate,
Wow.
believing that they had received unique and personalized insights.
Right.
It really highlights how easily we can be misled when we're presented with information that seems to confirm our own beliefs or desires.
Okay, so we've established that these psychics often rely on vagueness and generalization.
Yeah.
But what other techniques do they use to create this illusion of special powers?
Well, they're masters of language manipulation.
Okay.
One common tactic is something called forks.
Forks?
Yeah, where they phrase questions in a way that any answer will seem like a hit.
So they're basically rigging the game in their favor.
Exactly.
Okay.
For instance, they might ask, "You've been having some trouble sleeping lately, haven't you?"
Right.
Whether you answer yes or no,
Yeah.
they can twist it to sound like a psychic revelation.
Yeah.
Yes confirms their vision, and no might be met with, but your subconscious is telling me otherwise.
Oh,
They're always one step ahead, creating the appearance of insight.
that's pretty sneaky.
Yeah.
Are there any other linguistic tricks we should be aware of?
Another common one is the use of double-sided statements,
Okay.
which present both sides of a personality trait, ensuring they're at least partially correct.
Give me an example of that.
Yeah.
How would that work in practice?
Imagine a psychic saying, you have a strong desire for security, but you also crave adventure and new experiences.
Well, who doesn't?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a statement designed to resonate with almost anyone.
Right.
They're covering all their bases, making it seem like they've tapped into some deep truth about you.
So they're basically hedging their bets,
Precisely.
ensuring they can never be entirely wrong.
And these are just a couple of the techniques they employ.
Right.
They're also skilled at reading body language,
Oh,
picking up on subtle cues,
Yeah.
and adjusting their approach based on your reactions.
Right.
It's a performance through and through.
yeah, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
How do these psychics and mediums get their start?
Yeah.
Is it something they learn, or are they just naturally gifted?
Derren Brown, based on his observations,
Yeah.
has identified a couple of common career paths
Right.
for those who become successful stage mediums,
Mm-hmm.
the ones who gain some level of fame.
Right.
Interestingly, many come from a showbiz background.
So they already have a knack for performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're comfortable on stage,
Yeah.
know how to captivate an audience, and are skilled at weaving compelling narratives.
Yeah.
They understand the importance of presentation
Yeah.
and creating a sense of drama and intrigue.
And then they combine those skills
Yes.
with the allure of the supernatural.
Yes, and it can be quite a potent combination.
Right.
Another common pathway is actually from the world of magic.
So they start out as illusionists,
Yeah.
understanding how to trick the mind.
Right.
And then they transition into presenting those tricks as genuine psychic abilities.
That's essentially what happens.
Right.
They already have the technical skills and the understanding of how to create illusions.
Yeah.
And for some, there's a temptation to leverage those skills for what they perceive as greater rewards, both financially and in terms of fame.
It's a bit like they're crossing over to the dark side of entertainment, using their talents to deceive rather than simply amaze.
It's certainly a morally ambiguous area. Yeah. Some might argue that they're simply entertainers providing a form of escapism.
Right.
But there's a difference between harmless entertainment and exploiting people's vulnerabilities, especially when dealing with matters of life and death, or the desire to connect with loved ones who have passed away.
And speaking of deception, one thing that struck me is how television, with all its cameras and scrutiny, doesn't seem to hinder these psychics. In fact, it almost seems like the opposite is true.
It is quite paradoxical.
Yeah.
Derren Brown has pointed out that by claiming supernatural powers, these psychics actually face less scrutiny than traditional magicians.
Because viewers aren't looking for trickery in the same way.
Exactly. With a magician, the audience knows they're being tricked.
Right.
So they're actively looking for the method, the sleight of hand.
Yeah.
But with psychics, there's a tendency to attribute any inconsistencies or failures to the unpredictable nature of the spirit world. It's like a built-in excuse for any missteps.
It's as if the lower standard of scrutiny, combined with the drama and intrigue of the supernatural, creates an environment where deception can flourish. Especially on television.
Unfortunately, that's often the case.
Right.
And the more exposure these psychics get on television, the more their claims are legitimized in the public eye, regardless of whether those claims hold any real weight. And that's where the potential for harm comes in.
Right.
People might make life-altering decisions based on these readings.
Right.
Decisions about relationships, finances, even their careers.
It's like they're being sold false hope.
Yeah.
Which can be so much more damaging than having no hope at all.
It's a very delicate balance.
Yeah.
While there might be people who find comfort in these practices, it's important to remember they're not a substitute for therapy counseling or other forms of genuine support.
And I guess it comes back to that critical thinking we talked about earlier, to be wary of anyone claiming to have all the answers.
Right.
Especially when those answers come with a hefty price tag attached.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's always wise to do your research.
Right.
Ask questions and seek out multiple perspectives before making any major life decisions based on something like a psychic reading.
Derren Brown also talked about how we as humans have this tendency to focus on the hits and forget the misses when it comes to these kinds of readings.
That's a well-documented psychological phenomenon called confirmation bias.
Oh, okay.
We're naturally drawn to information that confirms our existing beliefs.
Right.
And tend to dismiss or forget information that contradicts those beliefs.
So if I go into a reading already believing in psychic abilities, I'm more likely to cling to any vague statement.
Exactly.
Even if it's just a lucky guess or a clever use of cold reading.
Precisely.
Right.
And afterward, we're more likely to tell our friends about how the psychic knew this very specific detail about our lives, conveniently forgetting all the times they were off the mark.
Right.
It's like we're creating the evidence to support our beliefs.
Right.
Even if that evidence is shaky at best.
It makes me think about how we often see psychics on TV claiming to have helped solve crimes.
Right.
I've always wondered how much truth there is to those claims.
Yeah, Derren Brown shared an anecdote about a psychic who made that very claim that they'd assisted the police in solving a crime.
Okay.
However, when he investigated, he found that the psychic had simply contacted the police.
Oh, really?
And offered their services.
Wow.
Which, of course, were politely declined.
So they were essentially taking credit for something.
Right.
They had absolutely no involvement in.
It seems that way.
Wow.
It highlights how some individuals in this field are willing to embellish their credentials, to bolster their credibility and mystique. It's all part of the performance.
But even when confronted with evidence that contradicts their claims, some people still choose to believe, don't they?
Yeah.
It's almost as if logic and reason take a back seat to the desire to believe.
It's certainly a fascinating aspect of human psychology. It demonstrates the power of belief.
Right.
And how tenaciously we can hold on to those beliefs.
Yeah.
Even in the face of contradictory evidence.
So if we can't always rely on hard evidence to change people's minds,
right.
What can we do to protect ourselves from these fraudulent psychics and prevent the spread of misinformation?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
Education is key.
Right.
It's about equipping people with the tools to evaluate information critically, to be savvy consumers of media, and to approach extraordinary claims with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Not skepticism in a cynical sense, but rather as a way to protect ourselves from being misled or taken advantage of.
Exactly. It's about encouraging a mindset of thoughtful inquiry, where we ask questions, challenge assumptions, and demand evidence, especially when dealing with claims that seem too good to be true.
Because, let's face it, sometimes the most captivating stories, the ones that draw us in, are the very ones designed to deceive us.
That's so true. And it underscores the importance of remembering that we all have biases. And critical thinking is a skill that requires constant practice and vigilance.
Speaking of those captivating stories, are there any specific things we should look out for when watching mediums or psychics? Any telltale signs that they might be employing these deceptive tactics?
There are definitely red flags to watch for.
Okay, what are they?
Derren Brown has highlighted a few key things to observe. One is rapid, continuous talking. This can be a way to overwhelm the audience with information.
So it's about keeping us off balance.
Exactly.
Not giving us time to think too deeply.
Another tactic is to make those vague statements we discussed earlier and then wait for the sitter to fill in the details. They might say something like, I sense a strong connection to a loved one who has passed. Their name begins with the letter J.
And of course, the sitter will eagerly jump in with, yes, my grandmother, her name was Joan.
Exactly.
Giving this psychic credit for the hit. When in reality, they didn't reveal anything concrete at all.
It's a classic technique. It relies on the sitter's eagerness to find meaning. And their willingness to connect the dots. Even when those dots are incredibly faint.
It seems like they're playing a sort of psychic Mad Libs.
I love that analogy.
Relying on us to supply the key nouns and adjectives.
It's so apt.
To complete the story.
Another common tactic is to shift the focus of a prediction. If it doesn't immediately resonate with the sitter, they might say, I see a journey in your future, perhaps overseas. And if the sitter responds with, no, I don't have any travel plans, they'll quickly adapt, saying, but it's not a literal journey. It's a journey of self-discovery, a metaphorical journey.
So they're like those inflatable punching clowns.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
No matter how hard you hit them, they always bounce back up. Always ready with an alternate interpretation, making sure they never appear wrong.
It's all part of their arsenal of techniques to maintain the illusion of psychic abilities. And unfortunately, these techniques can be very effective. Especially when combined with the power of suggestion and our innate desire to believe.
It makes you realize how important it is to be aware of these psychological mechanisms at play.
Absolutely.
So we don't fall prey to those manipulative tactics.
It's about empowering ourselves to make informed decisions based on reason and evidence, rather than being swept away by emotion or wishful thinking.
While we're talking about the potential for manipulation, it's important to acknowledge that these psychics are fulfilling a psychological need. For some people.
We all crave meaning and connection. And the idea that someone can offer us insights into our lives, our futures, and even the afterlife can be incredibly appealing.
It's like a shortcut to peace of mind, a way to bypass the complexities and uncertainties of life and death.
It can offer a sense of control and comfort in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. And for some people, that sense of comfort might be worth more than the truth. Even if that truth is based on illusion.
I suppose it comes down to individual choice. We may not agree with those beliefs. But we can respect people's right to find comfort and meaning. In whatever way works for them.
As long as they're not harming themselves or others. I think that's a fair and a compassionate approach.
You know, this whole conversation has really made me think about the role of storytelling
in
our lives.
Storytelling is such a fundamental aspect of the human experience. They're hardwired for narratives. We use stories to understand the world, to connect with others, and to create meaning in our lives.
And these psychics are at their core master storytellers. They weave these captivating tales of the supernatural, of connections to the spirit world, of insights into our past and future.
And they do it in a way that taps into our emotions, creating a sense of wonder and intrigue. It's a powerful form of communication.
And it's why we need to be especially discerning about the stories we choose to believe. Because while stories can inspire and comfort us, they can also mislead us, exploit our vulnerabilities, and even cause harm.
It's a great reminder that we need to be active listeners, to question the narratives we encounter, and to actively seek the truth, even when it's obscured by layers of illusion and deception.
Because the truth, even when it's complex and unsettling, is ultimately more freeing.
Beautifully said.
Than clinging to a comforting lie.
It's a reminder that critical thinking is an ongoing journey. A constant process of questioning and seeking evidence.
Well, this has been a really insightful exploration of the world of psychics and mediums. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. But there's always more to uncover.
There's definitely more to discuss. We could delve deeper into the psychology of belief and explore some of the more controversial aspects of the psychic industry. Perhaps we can continue this conversation in a future episode.
I think that's a great idea. I'm already eager to learn more.
I think it's fascinating how easily our brains can be drawn into this realm of magical thinking, even when we know better.
It really speaks to that innate human desire to believe in something beyond the ordinary, right?
Even Derren Brown, a master of illusion himself, admits that he can still be captivated by a well-crafted magic trick.
Oh, right.
Even though he understands the mechanics behind it.
It's like there's a part of us that wants to be fooled, that enjoys surrendering to the mystery.
And it highlights how our brains are constantly searching for patterns and meaning. Even when those patterns are just cleverly constructed illusions.
So how do we cultivate that healthy skepticism without succumbing to cynicism or becoming jaded by the world?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Finding that balance between wonder and critical thinking. I think it starts with nurturing our curiosity.
Curiosity about the world, about different perspectives, about how things work and why people believe what they believe.
And with that curiosity comes a willingness to ask questions. To dig deeper and to not simply accept things at face value.
It's about being open to new information, even if it challenges our preconceived notions or makes us uncomfortable.
And sometimes it's about being willing to admit that we might be wrong.
Oh, that can be a tough one. Especially when we've held on to certain beliefs for a long time.
It can be challenging to let go of those beliefs. Especially if they're tied to our identity or our sense of self. But there's also something incredibly liberating about releasing those limiting beliefs. And embracing the possibility of being wrong.
Because that's how we grow, how we learn, and how we evolve.
And it's how we protect ourselves from those who might try to exploit our vulnerabilities or manipulate us with those captivating but deceptive stories.
It's about empowering ourselves to be critical thinkers, be discerning consumers of information, and to make informed decisions based on reason and evidence rather than on fear, wishful thinking, or the allure of easy answers.
That's a powerful message to take away from this conversation. It's about taking responsibility for our own beliefs. And understanding the forces that can influence our thinking.
This has been such an eye-opening exploration of the world of psychics and mediums.
It has.
And I think our listeners will have a lot to ponder after this conversation.
I agree. It's a topic that invites us to think critically about the information we encounter. And to be aware of the psychological mechanisms at play. Both within ourselves and in the world around us.
On the subject of fraudsters and charlatans, Simon and Tom will be here for their weekly review on Sunday. But in the meantime, tune in tomorrow for another great true crime episode.